This conference will now be recorded.
Figure it's all predetermined, but there's just so much data that we couldn't know that you might as well assume just, it appears to be free will. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about avalanches in general, different types of them. We're going to talk about the avalanche hazards in town, and we'll get into a little bit of backcountry stuff. And if we have time, we might get into some rescue, but that's not what this class is about, really. So again, welcome. This is Mount Heaney. You guys recognize it? It's the western aspect of it.
Yeah, so some of the PowerPoint's gonna be a little goofy. I've got a lot of videos embedded and that's what's not working here. So we might kind of go back and forth a little bit. But this one might work.
This might work.
How do you play that?
Gives us a sense of the dynamics and the energy of avalanches. Everything's changing all the time. Pretty much think of this as being alive. So that was the secondary avalanche. Caused by the first one. Went down to deeper layer. You study these videos, you start to see trends of where the avalanche begins, and then see how it propagates and how the root travels. Once that sewage moving, you pretty much can't do anything when you're in it. Getting back to the idea of risk. So we're talking about the risk here. The local energy. If you want to, get your risk down to zero, the easiest way to do it is not go, right? So abstinence is the first solution. Of course, then you think about your terrain selection, and you can limit the probability. You can also limit your probability if you're looking at the avalanche forecast that's presented. We'll go through some statistics. Over the years, the number of fatalities has increased pretty regularly. It's starting to come down a little now, maybe because we know more, maybe because of equipment, but that's hard to say. It probably increased over the years, just with number of users out in the backcountry, and especially, the power of the snow machines and snow bikes being able to get places that we couldn't before. By state, Alaska is third, at least in this, span of years. And the reason we might be third is because of our population isn't as dense as compared to Colorado. By activity, we got, backcountry tour, snow machiners, climbers. They get exposed to avalanches a lot, and a lot of times they don't even know they're exposed. They tend not to be carrying shovels and beacons or rescue gear either. What's this one? Snow player.
Yeah, well, sweater.
We've got hunters in town. It's something, early season avalanches is something to be wary about. And anyways, it's statistics.
I don't know.
So when we talk about avalanches, we talk about different types. And we typically distinguish between a point release and a slab avalanche. Point releases and sloughs typically start at a point, and then as that's one snowflake or whatever's moving, it triggers other snowflakes to move and picks up more and more snow. So they tend to start as a point and then fan out as they get more and more snow. Point releases tend to be slower moving avalanches, slower to develop, and so they tend to be not as dangerous. The caveat on that is a point release can have enough energy to then trigger a slab avalanche. Okay, slab avalanches, oops, sorry, go back for a second. You can see these lines here, this is the crown lines and flanks of the slab. Typically a slab avalanche will all release at once. And in that sense, it's got a lot more energy right away. It can be moving faster and have a lot more snow. And slabs are more dangerous forms of them. In that video we saw a minute ago, I was pointing out over here, as that avalanche is coming down, there was another secondary release that was much deeper, caused by the initial avalanche. So we were talking about these loose avalanches, point releases. These are the loose wet or more of a point release. And it doesn't, you might not think of it as wet, but typically there's some sort of heat that's coming to that, that's causing that snowball to initially fail. Most of the time it's temperatures. It might be sunshine. It might just be a warm day. It also could be rain that's causing it. Or it could just be caused by you making a ski cut, causing a snowball to move, or just walking. Loose dry, or slough avalanches typically is caused by a skier or a user of any type that's, put some stress on the snow. It's going to be cold, dry snow, and it'll start some snow moving. As a backcountry skier or snow machiner, snowboarder, it's good on a steep slope to pay attention to what your turns are doing, because it might be behind you and you might be able to just stay in front of it, but sometimes they really pick up speed quick and can catch up to you and knock you off your feet. You know something? Classic slab avalanche, there's two types: soft slab, relatively new snow, looser, where a hard slab, it's going to be a pack, snow pack. which could be caused by wind or just time. Typically, a harder slab is going to propagate further and involve much more snow. I love this one. This is us on the ridge. Mike O'Leary went first. I think his tracks are here. Nothing happened. And we knew it was pretty sketchy, but we chose this line because we had a safety run out spot. Kirsti went next and triggered the slab right there. And it's just interesting, the relatively close position, how Mike didn't trigger it and then Kirsti did. We've had times where I'm worried about avalanche stuff. I'll try to be light and not cause much stress on the snowpack. But then there's other times where you might want to cut that slope and just really try to push it to see if it's going to go. Kind of a digression there. We'll keep moving. This is a deep slab. Yeah, this is up in the ridge between, this is Shields and Eccles is over on this side. It's, just got wind loaded. Interesting thing was the layers in here. These are solid ice layers. But that's a deep slab. Is this a video?
Yeah, see if I can play it.
No, it's good just to watch the dynamics at where this thing triggers, where's your escape route. I think on this one, he tries to stay above it. Is that this one?
Not this one. This is a barrel channel.
Oh, this one is in the ski area.
Yeah.
Above a ski area. So he gets caught there, but watch down here.
When you see that secondary one, it triggered that one mid-mountain.
There are people down there. Now you can see here that these people were safe, and that's because of the terrain features are causing that slide to come that way. You can go on past that.
If I can. Oops. There we go.
So this is debris from a rain-triggered wet slide. When it's wet like this, debris tends to stay on the ground and follows the terrain features, but it can also kind of create its own terrain features as part of the snow stops. It'll redirect the snow in a different direction. But if you ever seen anything like that, it looks like the bulldozer's been up there. I mean, the sides of that, the debris can be 20 feet tall. See, this is in Turnagain Pass, or not Turnagain Pass, but
Turnagain
Arm. There's 2 plows that are up here, and they're trained, they're removing debris. And if there's another slide coming, they're trained to turn into it, put the buckets up to protect them. For one machine, it worked. The other one got blown 100 meters out into the arm, and he died. This is 5.5 mile. 2000, we had a major avalanche that came down and took out part of that subdivision there. You guys know where the loop road is, 5.5 mile. This is, I don't know how many days after we had a lot of rain to kind of wash all this, melt the snow. But you can see all the debris from the houses and stuff. And an urban rescue in that situation is nearly impossible. First off, people don't have beacons on in their house. Second off, you're probing for something, but you're just hitting plywood and then trying to dig through that. It's really difficult. This is at Power Creek at the hydroelectric dam. That's right here. And this is 2008. We had an avalanche come down. And this is a steel bridge. It's pretty beefy, and it tweaked that thing. In 2012 snowpocalypse, That thing got bent even more to the point that CEC just removed the whole bridge. This is 2012 again. It's a 5 mile. You guys know what I mean by 5 mile?
Yeah.
So right before you turn onto the loop road as you're heading out to the airport, there's a smaller paths right there.
Right by the
Did that one
fire.
cross- Did it cross the road?
Yes.
It went
it's
into the lake, you can
Yep,
still see
I remember that one.
the
Yeah, it
debris
was
into the lake.
30 feet high
Yeah.
across the road.
I remember that one.
Interesting thing is that we got there, I don't know, hour after it happened. Probably a half hour. And parked 100 yards away. And I remember as soon as you opened the door to the truck, the smell of dirt in the air was crazy.
Mosquitoes.
And then it was a big bug hatch that happened. My feeling in this is like it started up here, and you see all the dirt that's involved. That I call this kind of a landslide that happened to have a lot of snow, or vice versa.
The land failed, yeah.
This is in Juneau. I think this is in the late 60s.
Mhm.
But again, another urban avalanche. They've had some trouble this year as well. Okay, then this is a different type of avalanche. It's called a glide crack. You'll see these things open up, especially when it's been wet out. The ground is wet, not frozen, and it's just sliding on the ground. Over time, you can sometimes see them keep moving, like days. They might. Sometimes they completely fail, and then sometimes they don't. They'll just sit there and melt out like that. Very dangerous, hard to predict. Big one for us, tell all your friends, especially the little kids, roof avalanches are very dangerous. Kirsti used to work with somebody in,
Portage Visitor Center, they were shoveling
they
and
were shoveling snow outside the entrance and the roof shed on them,
sledding.
killed them.
Don't put your doors underneath
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
shed
so if
roof.
anybody's building a house, you can collect roof lines. This is kind of the basic formula we have for determining whether a slope will avalanche. We divide it up into three things. Snowpack, weather, terrain, they all kind of interact with each other, especially the weather and the snowpack. And then we always put a person in the middle, because that's the other part of avalanche stuff is the human factor, decision-making. It could be a myriad of things. If you're hungry, or you're cold, or, you just got in a fight with your friend, or, or you might be following somebody you consider an expert and getting someplace that you shouldn't be. But we'll start with the terrain here. This is the Cove Side Eac right up here. This is very complex terrain. There's a lot of different slope angles and features. Anything else you want to say on that?
No.
Again, classic avalanche pass. These are the fingers here that lead into the 5 mile path. And then this span over here and this bowl back there, that's the 5.5 mile path. It's good to recognize paths and just notice, like, why are all these trees gone? How come there's no trees growing here? It's also important to remember that even though there are trees there, doesn't mean an avalanche can't come either. We've seen that at 5.5 mile, bunch of trees got knocked down, that 2000 side. Basic definitions, we got our start zone with avalanches start. We got the track or path, another name for it, and then run out is where the snow starts slowing down and depositing.
Anyone know where that is?
Wolverine.
Yes, this is
Murchison Bowl.
Murchison Bowl. Right here is 3 mile of the highway, and this occasionally comes across the road. I would say it's like a 20-year cycle. So it doesn't happen all the time. It did cross the road at the snowplow cliffs.
And then Jay's too.
So this starts on here, and then there's another one here, and they both funnel down separately into here.
I think I got a video of that like 3 years ago of that avalanching. The skater's cabin sounded like a jet was going on.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
And it was taking out it didn't cross the road, but it was taking out trees, and it was pretty
That's,
amazing.
yeah, high frequency, same with the next one over, which is a popular ski run. We call it Jay's 99, but
Phase 99 right here.
that one kind of, yeah, is
Very sketchy.
very sketchy.
And our access to this ridge, typically, we'd hike from here and, come up here and where's,
Cross safety trees or,
over here, and then there's a little bit of a gully here. And then we call these the safety trees here. But through this whole section, you are in the path. And if anything happened, you probably wouldn't be around because it's that big. Does anybody know where this is? Shepherd Point?
yeah, just past Humpback.
Yeah, so there's plans to make a road out there.
Doing.
And obviously,
Avalanche tunnel.
this path
Yeah.
comes down to the water. So, a tunnel would be the best thing. That just costs a lot more.
Why not?
Yeah, especially for a road to where, I don't know.
The one thing with this is it doesn't have a big start zone.
It
It's
doesn't.
kind of like the 5 mile one.
And also the orientation, our storms typically come in from the east, the wind's blowing west. So it'd be loading more this way than right here. Kind of gets cross-loaded. The other thing with that is paths do make it to the water. So if you're in a boat, you might think about that. Get big wave happening from that. This is 5.5 mile again. One notable thing with that, go back for a second. This has actually got 2 bowls with a slight ridge in the middle here. You can't see it from this photo. But until that little ridge gets leveled out, they tend to act separate. But once there's enough snow, then that whole thing can go. And then that's when it becomes more dangerous to hit the road. This is over in Whittier. Again, you see it gets all the way down to the ocean.
And it has caused waves into the Whittier Harbor before and it's caused some issues.
You guys know where that is? Echoes, yeah. And so we put this one up here because a lot of people go there thinking it's a fairly safe spot to go, but it's not always true. Again, the wind is coming over this ridge and loading this area here and here. So a lot of people hike up this, ski this, but it's just something to be worried about.
Or even if you're snowshoeing the base of that too.
Yeah. So in the subjective nature of this science, you gotta just look for clues. For instance, like damaged trees, flagging on these trees here. There's no branches on one side. You got this here, this here. So obviously avalanches are coming down this way. Other clues you want to talk about, or is that later? I think you got some shooting crack stuff later, don't you? Yeah.
That's just whether you're in avalanche terrain, if you're out kind of in the woods or in the flat country and you're wondering if you're even
there.
in avalanche terrain. If you see broken trees and flag trees, you're probably underneath a path.
This is back Surprise Valley, Power Creek area. Again, very complex terrain. I imagine that, there's some avalanches that happen up here. They probably come down here and they'll probably go here unless they jump over this. You know, again, avalanches might follow this gully down or come down in here. We're gonna get into rollovers later, right? Yeah. So the things you think about when you're evaluating is the slope angle is kind of the number one thing. Typically avalanches happen between 30 and 45 degree slopes. Steeper slopes than that, they tend to slough off continually during storms so that there's no snow left to set up a slab. And then lower slopes, it's just not steep enough. But there are avalanches that do happen at low angle, typically in cold, drier climates when you get a dump on. The aspect is which way is the slope facing. And that matters for wind loading, but it also later in the spring, it matters for the sun effect, the solar effect. And then you gotta remember here, it's like this slope is pretty much facing west, but you look at like this spot here, that's more of a southwest, or this side is gonna be more northwest. That's a big thing to think about. Years back, I was riding down a ridge, and a ridge line is typically a safer place to be because if you do trigger something, the snow is going to go down away from the ridge versus if you're in the gully, you're just going to be in the path. But as I was going down this ridge, I do one turn over here and boom, slab. Go to the other side, nothing. Next turn, come over here, slab. Over here, nothing. And it just kept happening every turn. The slope shape, we talk about convex rollovers. It's a big thing to think about because of the stress concentrations that occur right at the rollover, top of the rollover, versus a concavity. It tends to kind of support the slope from below. Not always true. When you think about trigger points, typically the shallower the snow is, the human's more likely to affect that weak layer. And so you think of spots where there's rocks sticking out or trees, you know, sometimes you can't see that it's a shallower spot. So it's good to know what your slope before it even snows. And then big thing too is terrain traps. I think we've got a slide later that kind of shows that more, but you might have a small avalanche. It doesn't have that much snow in it, but if it pushes you down into this gully where it can't run out and spread out, it's going to get deep there. So that's terrain traps. And not, you know, another idea of a terrain trap is you might be skiing something and have a small avalanche. It's not going to bury you, but it knocks you off your feet and sends you over a cliff. Those things like that to think about. Again, 30 to 45 degrees is the optimum angle. 38 is
For the slab avalanche.
for a slab avalanche. Well, one of those
Yeah.
two. But that's one good thing to just be wary about. There's a lot of different tools you can use to figure out slope angle, like compasses tend to have a thing on there. There's even cards with a little weighted string. But it's a good idea to think about that all the time. Try to be able to judge it yourself without a tool. Like how steep is that thing? One trick that I learned years ago, doesn't work for me anymore, but if our vision works with 2 eyes, so we can kind of triangulate distance because of that. And if you turn your head sideways and look at a slope, you can kind of see the steepness of the slope. You guys should all practice that, check that out. It takes some practice to try to figure it Configuration, what are we talking about here?
Concavity.
What's that?
The concavity there where the slab is.
Okay, so concave slope. Steeper spot that it's running on, and then slope, the snow is typically moving down towards this gully. Is that kind of what you want me to say there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, convexity versus the concavity. This right here is where the slope is going to get triggered most likely. Right at that rollover. And here's a prime example of that, right, that specific angle. It's not steep enough up here, but right here it's probably about 38 degrees. Again, different examples of it. You got concavity here, a convexity there, and then compressive support from below on that concavity.
Like benches and something that breaks the slope is what supports it. If you just have like 1,000-foot, 38-degree slope, that's an unsupported slope. But the more features you have to hold that slope up, if you get that, like if you see like benches are a prime example of that compressive. They can also be kind of your island of safety.
And it's, when we teach classes, we get lots of questions, and we always say, well, it depends. Just so many other little factors to it. It's hard to put it in a box. If you're put me in a box,
Make it a big box.
with lots of windows. Big thing we talk about, and this is why it gets really tough to, why this is so subjective, is the spatial variability. How every spot on the slope is experiencing different things, whether it's from the wind, the sun, or the convexities. And this is just a classic example of these three slabs happening. They're all at the same orientation. They're all on a convex roll, versus nothing's happening here. So this is a good example of how wind affects different aspects. So in this picture, the wind is blowing that way, stripping all the snow here. This is depression, so it's coming over that edge and eddied out, and it's dropping all the snow right here. And again,
Sorry, I can't, I'm going back.
that's good. Can you guys tell which way the wind's blowing?
Left to right.
You can tell from these cornices here, they're showing you the direction of the primary wind.
What's typically our loaded slopes around here? Which way do our
does the wind
storms,
blow?
when our big storms come in?
Typically our storms come in from the
Southeast.
east here, so our western slopes.
Our western slopes are our main.
Typically. And then when we have clear weather, that's when we get usually north winds, which is going to be happening this week. Occasionally we'll get westerlies off the water, but that doesn't happen so much in the winter. I have seen it happen and cause avalanches before.
Yeah. This winter's been weird too.
Yeah, we had one last week, we had a good
Yeah.
westerly.
Yeah.
Curls coming in.
And we don't have cornices this year, and we just haven't had those strong easterlies this year, so.
Well, we have, it's just.
But then we get like something stripping, because our cornices are just, I don't know. It's been a weird year. We typically like to ski slopes that are loaded. A lot of people are like, stay away from loaded slopes, but that's
But
where
that's where the
the
good snow
best
is.
snow is, so.
I mean, for instance, on the ski hill, what area gets the most snow? Dark side. And that's because it's on the western side of the ridge. Again, your aspects, your orientation of the slope, it's gonna, in the springtime, the solar radiation is gonna affect things. typically for us, it's not gonna happen until more like April, May, maybe some in March. But the sun isn't quite high enough or strong enough to really put a big effect in. That being said, it can warm temperatures with sunshine, but the warm air sometimes happens all year.
I'm going to trigger points.
Trigger points, the convexity, stress concentrations right in here, concavity, things are getting compressed there. We got a rock here, so it's shallow, and it's gonna create stress concentrations around it. And then, I'm not sure what this is supposed to be.
It's a cornice.
Yeah, what's the next one then?
It's a cornice. Maybe a big rock
So-
cliff.
Below the cornice, you'll see that's where stress concentrations are gonna be. It's gonna be heavily loaded right in here. Cornices are another thing that you need to worry about. They're very unpredictable, and especially where they break at. Is this video or just photo?
It's just a photo, yeah. Just showing different slabs, different spots
Yeah, so we got
below
one
the
there.
rocks. And then on those convexities, those benches below.
And wind loaded, but
I think this is a video that
this video works.
I don't think it will, cannot play media. I don't think it will play any of
Oh,
these.
cannot play media. This one now?
Another video, yeah, these are all good, kind of good slab.
Bummer.
Yeah,
Okay, moving on.
yeah, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. So remote triggering is when you or something is puts stress in the snow, but it causes an avalanche, not
Put the camera
where you
on.
are or where the stress was occurred, but someplace else. And this is just an example of one way that happens. You're adding stress here, you might settle the snowpack, and it won't send some energy down here, causing the fracture down below you. Yeah, next.
Sorry.
That's all right. This one's a classic one too. You can see this big slab here. This was caused by a heli ski operation,
Cat ski
snowcat.
in Girdwood.
And just driving up here caused this to avalanche down here.
And also kind of a terrain trap in that kind of gully down there as well.
Yeah, not a big slope, fairly deep, and then a terrain trap. Okay, talk a little bit about weather. Just for perspective, Cordova's right here. This is a big storm coming off the Pacific. The storms in the northern hemisphere, they tend to go this way, counterclockwise, where a high pressure is going to be clockwise. That's why when our storms come in right here, the wind is blowing this way. It's blowing this way, this way, this way, this way. Anything else wrong? There's a lot to weather. We could do a whole other class on that. So it's things to think about. You get recent heavy loading, for instance, like we did last Thursday. The new snow adds a lot of weight. If you add wind to that, it's gonna add twice as much weight to the leeward side. And it takes time for that new snow to kind of get comfortable with itself, and actually like bond to the old snow, bond to itself. Rule of thumb, general rule of thumb is after a big weather event to give it 24 hours to adjust. Rain is a tricky one because it's adding the same weight to the snowpack, but since it's liquid, it's actually weakening the bonds in the snowpack. So it's decreasing the strength while adding stress. So that's the big equation, is stress versus strength. Do we have that slide in here? That's stress strength. Wind can transport snow up to 10 times faster than just regular snowfall. It doesn't have to be snowing for that snow to be moving. Very important thing to think about. It's like it might be a bluebird day, but the wind's blowing. You'll see the snow blowing off the ridges and stuff. Another caveat to that is when it's cold and dry and you've got the north winds like we're gonna have this week, a lot of that snow doesn't come back to the ground. It'll just sublimate back into space because it's so dry. It'll just turn to vapor again. Solar effects, you can see the shiny spots. Again, there's convexity there. Again, that's going to be later in the spring. And we'll talk about snowpack. So snow falls out of the sky. Typically,
What do you want?
we are, typical snow crystals. Around here, the wind, by the time they get down to the ground, a lot of times these are all broken up. And then they'll become more roundish looking. Then there's lots of different types of snow. Different snow crystals will form differently at different temperatures. It may be a lot of high-minded science, but you get down to these ones where all the branches are broken off and they get these sharp, flat surfaces. We call that faceted snow. And that can be really shivery. It's the snow that you can't make a snowball with. And that's the stuff that will typically be the weak layer underneath your slab. So it's falling to the ground, different time, rates, and weather condition. And all that creates different layers. And we liken that to like a layered cake. You can actually dig into the snowpack and see those layers. And I suggest, if you're in the backcountry, to do that and poke around at those layers and just try to see if there's any weaknesses in there. While you're doing that, you can do a couple different tests that you can do, but we're not going to get into that here. Here's a cross view of the layers. You can see different densities. And it's the snow is always changing. At colder temperatures, it's not changing as fast. But each molecule of snow is constantly moving and changing, and that is something to be aware of. That the snow you skied on yesterday is not going to be the same as tomorrow. And same with the avalanche conditions. So rounding is when you get your snowflake over time, and then mechanical stuff, it loses its edges, and it ends up becoming a round. That stuff packs together to be nice and stiff and typically stable. It's gotta make sure you don't confuse around with a facet. Facets, it's gonna have faces. Typical idea of facets are like a surface hoard. You guys have all seen that, and you can see how shiny it is. Those are those faces of the snow crystals reflecting the light. Surface hoard, when it gets buried, is probably the #1 cause of avalanche, or #1 weak layer for avalanches. Occasionally, you'll get surface hoard that gets, or not surface hoard, but a depth hoard that gets down at the bottom at ground level even, especially early season or places with shallow snowpacks and cold temperatures. It'll form kind of like surface hoar, but underneath the snowpack. Hatchet Pass is a prime example of that being their probably number one hazard. You'll see some places people will boot packs the ski hill just to break up those early season layers. Because once they get buried, they'll last the whole winter. And you might think everything's golden, and then come springtime, the snowpack weakens and you get full depth avalanches to the ground.
You want to talk about maritime is where our snowpacks are typically deeper on the maritime climates. Temperatures are warmer, so that promotes more rounding. Faceting is more like Colorado, where it's drier, shallower snowpack. Your snowpack's more exposed to the air temperatures.
Right. So with our snowpack typically being deep, the difference between that air temperature and the ground temperature there isn't as big of a gradient there. Versus if you had a shallow snowpack and cold temperatures in the air and the ground, we kind of typically assume it's right around freezing.
Layerings.
So again, the recipe, we got this is our cohesive slab. They've scraped there with their glove or something and they've found like some weak layer there. And then that's all sitting on this bed surface, which tends to be stiffer. And you just get, a weak layer can be, varying thicknesses. Sometimes they can be so skinny you can't see them. But if you do a snowpack test on there, you'll probably be able to get it to figure it out. We'll get weak layers around here a lot from ice layers from rain events. Makes ice layer, and then on top or below that ice, that creates this barrier, and with the temperature gradients, it just makes a concentrated temperature gradient there. So you'll see facets on both sides of that ice layer. Sometimes if it's a thick ice layer, the ice will start to decompose itself, and you'll find a weak layer in between the outsides of the ice layer. And again, stress versus strength, you guys understand those terms? My strength is like how much I can take, but the stress is like how much I'm getting, and then eventually I can't take it anymore. Right side up storms, you might see this in our forecast, tend to be where the snow on the bottom is denser. And then as you get towards the surface, it's lighter and lighter. And if you think about it, what's a good analogy for that? Well, let's say it had, steel or concrete boots on or something like that. I've got a lot of weight down here. It's going to be hard to kind of tip me over. But if I had all that concrete up here, standing on one leg, that makes sense.
Yours is an upside down.
So an upside down snowpack is where you get the heavier snow on top of the lighter snow. You'll see that where a storm will come in and it'll be cold at the beginning and it's dropping cold light snow, and then the temperatures come up and it's either turn to rain or just heavy, dense snow on top of it.
We had one of those a couple weeks ago, where even like some of the safer, like the ridge and everything, every little thing that was any little slope that had any angle to it just was popping right out. So something, especially around here, usually we're right side up. Usually it comes in wet, leaves cold. That's what we like. But every now and then, if it's been really cold for a while, just think about when that storm comes in, if it's progressively getting warmer, then the snowpacks can be really reactive. Even on the ski hill, we'll see conditions like that.
And so that's where you start to look around, if you see any activity, you making a note to yourself. So recent avalanches. So you see recent
Be able
avalanches.
to, you try to date those avalanches when you're out there. Like you might see something, did it happen a week ago? Did it happen yesterday? Did it happen today? When did it happen? Because that's the most important thing of that observation.
Because you might see this and it happened a week ago and now everything's stable. Another thought to think about is, well, this has slid already, so it's probably not going to slide again. So that's theoretically going to be safer than over here, which hasn't slid. So you see a crack in the snow, you might even be walking, hiking along, and from your feet, you see a zip happen. You might not release, but it tells me it's a red flag that there's some instability there, instability. Whooping is typically when you get the buried surface hoard, it'll kind of be like cards standing on like edge, and you've got like a heavy weight on top of it, and then all those cards will collapse like that. You'll get the whooping typically on more flat ground, but you can see the whole thing will drop. You know, it might drop an inch. You'll feel it, and you'll hear kind of a whoop. And then another one is the hollow drum-like sounds in the snowpack. You can kind of hear those. You're poking around. Another red flag, again, we're talking about the heavy precip. Give it 24 hours after it stops, before you start poking around. The wind-blown snow, again, you'll see that coming off the ridges. And it's telling you that it's getting loaded in here. Rapidly increasing temperatures. I like to think about it, any rapid change to the snowpack is giving stress faster than its strength is, faster than its strengthening. So a rapid increase in temperature is a classic one. When was that? 2 weeks ago now? 3? It's warmed up like crazy. It was 52 degrees at the top of the ski hill.
Oh, yeah, that's when we went from 10 below to 50 above.
Yeah, we went. Yeah, we went.
That was during that last
60-degree swing.
Yeah.
In a day or two or something like that. Well, speaking of that too, is interesting enough when I'll just give you some random things here. But when it's cold and there's no wind, the cold air denser, so it's going to sink down, and the warm air is going to be up higher. We call that a temperature inversion. So you might see temperatures at the airport that are super cold, but up at the ridge, it'll be more mild. If there's wind, a lot of wind going, that's not going to let that happen. It's going to circulate it more. So when traveling with others, one thing I haven't talked about at all is communication. Again, getting back to situational awareness and knowing your hazards, your escape routes, and then communicating that with everybody. That's number one. Again, continuously being observant, testing the snow, poking your pole in there, maybe doing a quick little snow pit with your glove and just seeing if the snow is bonding well. And then think about the terrain, specifically what's above you. But also you gotta remember your traps, what's below you. And then your escape routes. You want to keep space between you, especially when you're in suspect areas, just so that you all don't get caught at once. If one person gets caught, then you still got other people that can perform a rescue. Again, escape routes, islands of safety. And then I was talking about in your suspect area, you want to be traveling lightly, light as a feather. You don't want to be jumping up and down, or unless you're trying to get something to go. And it's a good idea not to travel above your partners because you might cause an avalanche onto them. And yeah, cornices, train traps. This is a great photo here. You see all the people, good spacing. Somebody's taking the photo. This guy's crapping his pants. This guy's not sure. But yeah, good use of spacing out. They still might be a little bit close together, but if you space yourself out too far, then you got to think about exposure time to the whole party.
Space.
Another good example. That's a big party.
That's huge.
They keep going, don't they? And then spacing again when you're ascending. It's best to go one at a time. There's some days where and some slopes that you might be like, oh, right, let's all ski together and do that. But best to have one person in a safe spot, one person skiing down, and you want that person to ski into a safe spot again, because the next skier might trigger an avalanche on them. This is a classic example. They skied one at a time, but what do you think they did wrong?
All the people sitting at the bottom.
Right here.
Exactly.
They're sitting right in the path.
Yeah, they should have moved over more underneath those cliffs.
Trees
You
or
know,
something.
you could come out and ski and traverse, so you're kind of protected underneath those cliff bands a little bit. So like where you stop is important.
For you is doing that over it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And sometimes it's hard to find that because you want to watch your partners too.
Yeah.
And finding that spot where you're out of the way, but
Still can see them.
you can still see them.
Yeah.
And, once again, some benches are really nice, cliff bands. Yeah, just getting away from that. And if you do have to stop, just if you do stop and then you're watching, know if something is triggered, where you're gonna go.
Yeah.
Be facing the right direction.
So
Maybe.
for instance, one time Kirsti and I were skiing up on the ridge here, and we were getting into some avalanche terrain, and I was trying to ski real light because I didn't trigger anything, and then Kirsti waited for me to get down there, and I was waiting, and she came across the slope, and she wasn't trusting it, so she went ski cutting, and was just bumping on it, and it all went. And where I was standing, it was coming towards me. But I was stopped in a spot. I'm on a snowboard, so that I could have some downhill to get out of the way. Just planning little things like that.
She didn't get you.
What's that?
She didn't get you.
No, she tried.
There's a theme. I tend to not travel gently. I like to put hard turns in.
Yeah, if it's gonna happen, she'll make it happen.
But I know where to go.
I love this.
Why?
So, it's good. He's on belay. He's got a partner.
The partner's not over.
Yeah. If that thing breaks, the other thing when these things break, it's gonna break here.
Yep.
And even if it just broke here, the whole momentum would probably take the partner with them. But good things to think about with these cornices is don't travel right on the edge. A lot of times you can't tell it's an overhanging cornice, but you'll want to be way back here. You see how far. There, I mean, the ridge is probably here. That's just all the snow built up on it. This is a good example of a terrain trap. Yeah, it's decent sized avalanche, decent sized crown line, but not a huge slope. But it all stopped in this gully here. And so I imagine it's very deep there. This is a tragic accident in Snowmass. I believe one
Snowboarder
kid
died.
is killed in that. But you see, it's 14-foot wide slope, 30 feet long, in a terrain trap, in a ski area. You want to comment on this one?
Mm-mm. No, just when you're in the, sometimes you're on the valley floor and just always be aware of what's going on above you. The angle, what is it, the alpha angle of a run out, if you're at the base of a mountain, is about 18 degrees. So if you were to,
I'll get this, you guys can see my mountain. So if there, let's say an avalanche happened here. I don't know if my degrees are right, but 18 degrees. So this debris would make it to that person.
so if you were standing there and you had some way of doing a slope angle up to the start zone, that's a big one, but that would be, it shouldn't run out more than 18 degrees. Does that make sense?
It's a rough number, it's.
So if you're
but just
traveling,
think
yeah.
about that. It's like, yeah, you're obviously not going to stand right underneath the slope, but think about how far back you should be.
In those flat valleys, because sometimes you're just out tootling around, not even thinking about, what's above you. And you can trigger that remote triggering. I've triggered things on the valley floor. Those shock waves your weight being on the valley floor can actually trigger all the way up into the start zones. So always look up. Sometimes if you're out boating around or where you're anchoring, I've thought about that. Where are you gonna put the boat for the night?
Oh, this is a good video, but we're going to be able to play it.
I think this might be a YouTube that we can,
Dang.
well, we might.
So another kind of rule of thumb I just throw out there, 1 inch of water is typically 10 inches of snow when it falls. Water, because if it be raining down here, and maybe.
So this is what we're talking about, like you're traveling in the woods, there's no snow.
No snow, no hazard. Just think about how long this takes.
This is a long video. This is in Canadian Rockies. Springtime.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna come through those trees or not,
Yeah,
but the municipality there, there's just a bunch of crowds.
yeah.
Now they're getting more relaxed.
That's what I was wondering. Got a long ways to go.
Now these signs of old snow. A lot of time.
Sure, I totally stand on that edge. Because that's a lot of weight. I'd be worried land could give out.
This is more of a wet debris pile. It's sticking to the ground. It's slower moving. It's really dry snow. It can get airborne. Pound blast from dry snow. Also, you'll notice on that side that the debris starts forming a wall, channelizing the snow as it starts moving. Where did all that snow come from? I didn't see anything up in the mountains.
Not gonna have anything to see.
It's still coming.
Yeah, it goes on forever. It just kind of keeps going. Expect the unexpected. Oops.
So route finding is an important thing. You can start your route finding before you leave home, like either taking pictures of stuff or looking at topos or Google stuff. But which way would you guys typically travel up this? Anybody want to try? Really?
Ridge on the far left.
Ridge on the far left, I like that. If I came up there, I probably wouldn't go through here, but come up this way somehow. I see another spot, like maybe you could get up in here, but this one looks way better to me. Where is this?
I don't know, actually.
What are these?
Still stage.
But yeah, so ideas like that, ridges are safer, stay out of the gullies.
What do you think of that choice?
What's going on top there?
I know, it's,
I can't even remember what.
this is Back
us.
Tower Creek. Yeah, no, that's,
I think that's O'Leary there, right?
yeah.
And we don't know why he went that way. But it might have been more obvious there with the slope angle stuff. This could be kind of funky, but this is where the ideal route would be.
Stay away from all that. It's a big snow year, I think. Well, that whole slope had failed on our way back down. The sun had hit it. So we climbed up it in the morning and then it was all gone.
Yeah, so that's, again, thinking about like solar radiation, timing things, and any type of weather, really good.
And this is kind of a timing.
Okay, this is a great timing shot here. I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a bunch of tracks here and here.
So morning,
And this is the same
afternoon.
slope.
Holy shit.
So just because you see tracks doesn't mean you have to remember when those when tracks are laid, and it could be another day, another hour.
Is this a snow machine rescue?
I think so, yeah. But a lot of people, people will tell me, well, such and such skied this the other day, it should be just fine. Maybe.
Yesterday's fish.
Maybe, but you could ski it in the morning and not be okay in the afternoon. So, just beware of
Following tracks.
following tracks.
Just because it's tracks here doesn't mean it's safe.
Things are always changing.
I know.
Even if there hasn't been active weather, it's still changing. It could be safer.
Yep. Okay, islands of safety and your escape routes. Right? This is the ridge above the ski hill. Typically, this is a fairly safe spot, at least the stuff you can see here. Think about your islands of safety would be, like little islands typically, like that, little ridges sticking out where there's trees.
Always be thinking about that. That's what I just put this slide in just because really the ridge is pretty safe, small slopes.
You got one going here yesterday, right?
Yeah, a little wind slab right there yesterday.
And then where was your escape route?
Into those trees to the lookers, right? Yeah. But always expect something to kind of release on you, even if you don't think it will. Just expect it, so you know where to go. Like if you look at a slope, whether you're going up it or going down it, think, okay, if it's all going to come down on me, if there is a slab avalanche, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go?
And it's changing.
And it's always changing every step. But I kind of am thinking of that as I'm, like I said, even, traveling up and down. Whether it's a cliff band I'm going to ski over to, or, a bench,
Same time
getting off that slope. What's my way of getting off that slope? If that makes sense.
Okay, so we're just getting, this is all the safety stuff now? Rescue?
Yeah, we have two videos.
So if we get it caught in an avalanche, first thing you want to try to get attention to somebody if somebody's around. People ski by themselves all the time and do snow machine, whatever, but it's good to have a partner, just so you have some backup in case you get messed up. You want to try to get off the slope, and by that I mean get out of the moving snow. And fight to stay on top of it so you're not getting buried. So if you triggered an avalanche, all that snow theoretically is kind of below you. It might have started right above you or something like that. But if you can start swimming uphill, fight like hell, grab under a tree or something to let that snow go past you, then you have a much, you're not in the avalanche anymore. And as much snow as you can get past you before you get caught in it, that's going to help you out too. So you just want to fight like hell. As the snow starts slowing down, come to a stop, it's going to set up like concrete. So you want to try to make an air pocket around your head. And another thing is to try to put your hand upwards. You might not know which way up is, but you're going to try to get something. So that way you can maybe get your hand out and your partner can get a visual on it. It's really, you want to try to close your mouth, but typically snow is going to be shoved in your mouth and your nose and your ears. So that's another reason you're trying to protect your mouth from getting snow in it. And you want to have some sort of bubble around your head if you can, because snow is porous and in the sense that oxygen, air can flow through it. But as you're breathing that air, as you're exhaling warm air, and it's going to melt around your face and form in icelands, so it's not gonna be permeable anymore. And then what happens is you just rebreathing air, and it just, eventually it's gonna become carbon monoxide. You're gonna have lack of oxygen. And with that note, you wanna try to relax, don't panic, and use up all your oxygen that won't, right away. And hopefully you've trained your buddy how to do rescue.
This one will play. No, this one's just somebody staying on top.
Is it the bag, airbag?
No, it's another one. I don't know. Sorry, these won't work.
Can you get the rabbit
Oh,
one?
I might be able to get the rabbit.
Okay, this is one of my favorites. First of all, notice it's a snowboarder.
Oops. I need to
And,
click that.
He doesn't seem to really notice that he caused an avalanche, not till later. But he ends up scaring this rabbit.
Become the rabbit.
Yeah,
Become
exactly.
the rabbit, be the rabbit.
We had a couple videos of triggering and we said, stay on top. But if you trigger something, if you can get back on top of it, like whether you have momentum, if you can ski off of it, basically. Sometimes it's best to just stop. We had a good video of a guy who triggered a slab and he just sat down. So then all the snow went past him.
Another one, we had a video we had that didn't see is that skier triggered avalanche. He didn't realize that he made one more turn before, so he got deeper into the slab and he just got wiped out over a cliff. And,
So either stay on top or try to find the exit, basically, whether it might be shooting off to the right or left, but not staying on the fall line.
You want to go back to the hazards real quick? Oh, never mind. What's this next one?
Yeah,
Are we gonna watch that?
we can.
Okay. So this is another hazard. It's not avalanche related, but tree wells. Very dangerous. We've had people caught in them here. Kirsti spent a lot of time at Baker. It's notorious for tree
I
wells.
patrolled 1 year at Baker and we lost 3 people that year to tree wells, all snowboarders.
Problem with snowboarders, your findings aren't releasable.
You go head first, and these were mostly kids, but going head first into it, and then the snowboard is stuck. You're stuck. With ski you can kind of have 2 legs, but you get fixated.
When we get a heavy load of snow, all quickly, the trees will kind of protect the stump of the tree well, and so form this hole that sometimes you can't even see, you don't even know it's there. Tree wells.
We don't have to watch about 5 minutes of it. It's kind of painful, but
It is kind of painful.
it's somebody. Actually, it's at Baker, Mount Baker, and somebody skiing by notices.
Yeah, now you're just red.
Okay. deep snow.
It's like dark side.
That's what always worries me about dark side. Oh. Deep snow's tough to move in. Yeah, no, it's good job.
I guess I got like 3 degree with techniques. You can't really shovel straight down on somebody. So you typically want to go downhill when you're shoveling. This is a ski resort, but
No bigger.
that kind of ski, medium ski with ski, long-term stuff. Some skiers are harping on them until they shovel. And what you're doing, you're going straight ahead. Establish the airway. After you get the mouth, you want to get some off the chest. So sometimes it's great one weapon.
The thing is he did have a shovel. He breaks it out now, but like, I found that interesting. I think I might have broke it out sooner.
So backcountry stuff for safety. You and your partners should everybody should have a backcountry receiver, shovel, and for this probe is necessary, but for full burial, you want to come with the beacon and pinpoint them, but then you want to make sure that you got the probe. Otherwise, you could dig in the wrong spot, and that just takes up too much time.
Mr. Wild. He gets them out. This guy's awesome. No, he wanted out. And just lucky enough for that guy to see.
Okay, so this is North American Avalanche Danger Scale. This is what we use for our forecast, both the backcountry and the highway. We use this they mean a little bit different things, the two. But for we'll go over just the backcountry stuff. Low, generally the safe avalanche conditions, but it doesn't mean that it's totally safe. Avalanches still could happen. So they're unlikely, but they're not impossible. Typically with low ones, we're going to talk about smaller avalanches. When you get to moderate, it's going to be slightly higher. Again, you're going to say they're unlikely, but possible. When you get to considerable, they're possible. And then, when you get to high, they're likely, and, extreme is when they're happening everywhere all at once. You'll see, I'll put considerable in our forecast, quite big, especially for above tree line. A lot of that is because of uncertainty of limited information that we have. We only have 2 weather stations, one at the airport and one at the top of the ski hill. And, there's so much terrain. The 2 of us, we can't touch every piece of snow. So there's times where I'm going to put considerable there. And with considerable, that's a lot of avalanche accidents happen when the forecast is considerable because people think, well, it's not high. But you just got to think about your terrain selection. Let's use all those safety rules. Anything else on that? Any questions on that? No. This is just some places you can reach out to. I'm heavily involved with the Alaska Avalanche Information Center. Website's alaskasnow.org. You can see our forecast there. I don't know how many of you on my email list, but if you want to send me an email, I can put you on my direct email list. But otherwise, you can find it there. And avalanche.org is the nationwide website. We've got forecasts for all over the U.S. Unfortunately, they don't have Canadian stuff in there, but we'll work on that. Chugach National Forest, it's Girdwood. Typically, Turnagain Pass is where they're forecasting for. We've got Hatcher Pass, Avalanche Center, and then Alaska Avalanche School. They do some great classes. If you guys are looking for like a level 1 class, which is typically 3 to 4 days, 24-hour minimum class, half in the field, half in the classroom. We've done some ourselves, but it's kind of difficult for us to get a class together. Maybe we get one in a year, and it all depends on our weather. How it can change all the time. So I would suggest, you can find classes at alaskasnow.org as well, like in Valdez. That's enough said on that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys planning on doing one this year?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, we could do a field day if there was enough interest, just
I'd like to do
to
something.
go over like rescue and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, last year we did something with a bunch of snow machiners, just in the ski hill parking lot where we went over beacons and
I remember that.
in general. And so I'd like to do that again.
Yeah.
But as far as.
and you guys are mostly snow machiners.
Yeah.
It would be nice because we're not snow machiners, so it's kind of a whole different way of traveling. We do have some friends. Actually, one guy was just here. He flew in
We've been
yesterday.
trying to get there.
We've been trying to get
The timing and
some,
logistics are just too difficult.
somebody to come in and do just a snow machine specific class, because I think that'd be great for this community.
Yeah, and I think Chugach does one, don't they?
Chugach does one,
Or is it Alaska
Valdez.
School, Avalanche School.
Valdez, sometimes they used to when, what's his name, Mike Buck, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe we can maybe we can ask around again and see if we can't. I mean, Kyle can
Oh, yeah, Kyle would be great too.
I
but
mean,
it's
he has his own plane. He just flew in he lives up on 74 Mile in the Richardson, and he could easily come. And I don't know. It'd be nice to have a snow machiner.
You go on a snow machine.
You want a snow machine, yeah.
Yeah, but last year I kind of arranged that class with Jeffrey Chappell. And I'll probably, contact him to get the word out to everybody, or maybe just in their Avalanche forecast, I'll put a note in there. But yeah, maybe it's one of these upcoming weekends,
Mm-hmm.
sooner the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go up to like Keeney Meadows or something and, look at the snow, dig some snow pits and kind of look at that kind of stuff as
That
well.
would be good too, because we didn't really do that so much.
No.
Is that all for?
Well, we have
everything else?
rescue, but this has just been here a long time, so I don't know.
Yeah, we might just skip the rescue part, just because,
I like rescue in the field.
yeah. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, you said that you are the avalanche forecaster. How do you make that forecast? Are you just looking at the weather and like from the ground, or do you just like go up there and
Yeah.
test?
Yes, there's all that. Typically, every day I'll check the weather at least once a day. And I have, I don't know, not quite a dozen sites I go to kind of confirm what it's saying. And occasionally I'll call the weather service in Anchorage just to confirm what I'm seeing versus what they're saying. One thing to think about, we're on the edge of the weather service's forecast area, so they don't get our forecast right a lot of the time.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys know that. So then other things I might do is, let's say I'm not hiking, I'm gonna drive around and just look up in the hills to see if anything's slid, anything obvious, how big is it? And then we'll go up for a hike, get above the ski hill. We tend to spend a lot of time up on the ridge because it's easy access and safe, and we can get some representative slopes fairly easily. But just by walking around the snow, it tells you a lot. But we'll dig a pit in the snow. Sometimes we'll just do it with our hand, just feeling it. Sometimes we're just poking our ski pole in there, seeing what the layering's like. But if we really want to get into it, we'll dig a hole that's probably 6 feet wide, and we're going, at least 4 feet deep. Depends how deep the snowpack is, but you want to get down below your suspect layer, and then in the side of your pit, you can poke your finger and kind of determine the structure of that layered cake. If it's light, less dense snow up top usually, and it gets denser as you go down. But then you might find something that has some really loose snow, not very dense snow underneath that. That's where you get the top heavy thing. There's a couple good tests you can do with the snowpack. My favorite one is called extended column test. If I would look that up online if you want to learn about that. But typically, you're isolating a block of snow that's 90 centimeters, which is roughly
3
3
shovels.
feet. So 3 shovel widths wide and 1 shovel width deep. And you'll cut off the sides of that, cut the front of it, make it as square and vertical as possible. If you're doing that, you kind of got to need a saw, but otherwise you got to dig the back of you want to disconnect that and completely isolate that block from the back and the sides. And then you have to put your shovel on one end of that block, and you'll start out by tapping from the wrist onto your shovel. And then you do that like 10 times, and then you go from the wrist. And you don't want to hit too hard, you just kind of want your wrist to drop. And then you go again 10 times, and then you do your full arm dropping on it. And what you're looking for is, does it break someplace? And if it does break, does it propagate all the way across that column? And that propagation tells you that the snow is more likely to produce a
Stored energy.
A lot of times up here, our snowpack is relatively homogeneous. You can just pounding on that thing and then the whole pile will just kind of fall apart, but it won't slab off.
We're looking for that cohesive slab to pop out and have a nice bed surface.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes you'll get part of it to break off and you're like, oh, well, that means something, but if it's not propagating, it's not meaning that much. Another good resource, I should mention this, for anybody that's really interested in learning more about this for backcountry use. The best book that I've seen is Bruce Trimper's Staying Alive in Avalanche Terrain. Really good book. And it's, more about the backcountry user.
Thanks.
Yeah, did I answer that?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kirsti and Hoots, for presenting. We really appreciate it.
sorry for all the technical difficulties.
Yeah, I apologize about the technical difficulties at the beginning.
Still didn't get them to work, but that's okay. You could, look at videos online. And what I like to do is when I look at videos is, that there's gonna be an avalanche before it happens, try to figure out, like, if the guy's skiing, be like, okay, he's gonna trigger it here or here, and kind of.
So think about like where is it triggering in those videos and then where's it going.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, cool. All good night. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Anne, for running to get your computer.
Welcome back. When did you get home? Did you take your keys?
I tell Rachel we need to have like a girls' week, and they've got these cabins. In the cabin at the base. It's fun just being somewhere else. Kind of weird, yeah.